Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Dean. Good afternoon, Tilak and Andy, and our distinguished participants. I welcome you to this special issue launch on rural and agriculture development in digital age, which is done in collaboration with Review of Development Economics. So it has been almost a year that we had a conference in 2022. Now, after more than 12 months, we are ready to launch the special issue. We went through a very rigorous process, very tedious one, but finally we have achieved something. And I wish and I sincerely hope that the recommendations from this special issue will feed into rural development and policy making, particularly in DMCs in Asia. Before I actually we start, I'd like to give you a few house rules, although many of you are aware of the house rules. First is that if to the speaker, if you are not speaking, and then please keep yourself muted and also turn off the video. But you can turn it on when you are speaking, and also when you're speaking. And whenever you want to ask a question, the speaker can raise their hands and pose questions directly. And for the audience, you don't have the options of asking question directly. So please type in your question in Q&A box, and I'll pick it up and share it with the panelist to answer. Consent to use without permission or compensations. This event may be photographed, streamlined, or video recorded. By attending, accepting connections, or continuing participation in the event, participants thereby consent to the possible use of their name, likeness, voice, spoken or written comments, or paper presentations in whatever form in all media publications, video sharing websites, recording, disseminations, or other external affair purposes for the Institute without compensations or permission. Disclaimer for presentation. The view expressed in the presentations are the view of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views or the policy of the Asian Development Bank Institute, the Asian Development Bank, its boards of directors, or the government they represent. ADBI does not guarantee the accuracy of the data included in the presentations and accepts no responsibility for any consequences of the use. Terminology used may not necessarily be consistent with ADB official terms. Now I invite you all for the photo session. Roxanne, can you take on the floor?
Yes. Okay. Thank you everyone for turning on your camera. Professor Tylak. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so we'll take the photo from the count from 1 to 3. So 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, one more time. Oh, Wong Lin said, okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Roxanne. So now I'd like to invite Dean Sonobe to give his opening remarks. Just a brief introductions. Dean Sonobe is the Dean and the CEO of Asian Development Bank Institute. Dean Sonobe obtained his PhD in economics from Yale University and BA in economics from University of Tokyo. Before joining ADBI, Dean Sonobe served for 6 years as the Vice President of the National Graduate Institute for Policy Study GRIPS in Tokyo and taught economics for 30 years at Tokyo Metropolitan University and GRIPS. Dean Sonobe is the recipient of Nikkei Book Publications Prize and Masayoshi Ohara Memorable Prize, and a founding board member of Japanese Association for Development Economics. With this, I'd like to hand over the floor to Dean.
Thank you, dear. So good evening from Tokyo. Although it's still bright, so maybe I should say good afternoon from Tokyo. I warmly welcome you all to the launch of the special issue of the Review of Development Economics on rural and agricultural development in the digital age. On behalf of ADBI, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to RDE for partnership and collaboration, and congratulate Editor-in-Chief Professor Andy Mackey, co-editor Professor Wang-Ling Ma, and guest editor Dr. Dil Rahat, and all the authors on this kind of significant milestone. I would also like to show my warm appreciation for participation of so many people in this event. The initial idea of organizing an online conference on the role that ICT, information communication technology, can play in rural and agricultural development was quite quickly shaped by Dr. Dil, and I agreed with him immediately. And then he and I soon learned that Professor Andy and Professor Wang-Ling also quickly agreed to start a collaboration, which made us very happy. Then I was surprised that we received nearly 100 responses to our call for papers. And then I was more surprised when I heard from Professor Wang-Ling that more than 40 papers were good papers, and as many as 28 papers would be worth the presentation at the conference. So the online conference, which we had initially planned to be a 2-day event, became a 4-day event. Another surprise about this conference was that it could have 3 extremely excellent keynote speakers, that is Professors Jikun Huang, Edward Barbier, and Michael Kremer, whose speeches were unsurprisingly impressive, informative, and insightful. I could thank Professor Barbier in Tokyo last April and Professor Kremer in Incheon, Korea last May, respectively. And I would like to do the same to my old friend Jikun before too long. As you remember, the conference was held just 1 year and 1 week ago. That is on 8, 9, 10, and 12 August 2022. Thanks to the devotion of the authors, reviewers, and the editors, the production process was so efficient and speedy. But I know that the journey was not an easy one, and hence it is worth looking back here in this launch event. Even though it is briefly described in the introduction, first paper in the special issue. So I hope that Editor-in-Chief, Professor Andy, will include some of the episodes that happened during the production process in his remarks. The significance of this special issue, the creation of scientific knowledge, and its significance as valuable input to evidence-based policy, will be discussed by Professor Andy and Professor Tirak, even though those things are also written in the introduction in the special issue. So to avoid too much overlapping with Professor Andy and Professor Tirak's talk, I will not say much about these things, but just thank the 2 subsequent speakers in advance. And then instead, I would like to talk about ADBI's future plans related to this special issue briefly. One is an attempt to strengthen evidence presented in the special issue through efforts to collect more data, that is, data on more recent developments, data in other areas or regions to see external validity, or data generated by randomized controlled trials. For this purpose, we will need to get more funding by collaborating with ADB other international organizations or philanthropies. And then another plan for future is to organize policy dialogues in which researchers would talk to policymakers and other practitioners, which would help policy-based research, making your research more policy relevant. I do not know when these plans can be implemented, but I hope you will respond to our calls when it or they happens. And then related to this, ADBI is now developing an ADBI app to be used on mobile phones so that university researchers, think tank, and the international organization colleagues and the government officials can more easily receive information on ADBI events, calls, and publications. And more importantly, not only ADBIs, but also other organizations, similar information, that is information on events, calls, and publications. So, for example, this app, if it's complete or developed, it will provide a consolidated event calendar, which shows all events that take place tomorrow, day after tomorrow, etc., at all registered organizations. So please download and use this app when it becomes available, hopefully before the end of this year. So before closing my remarks, I would like to thank you all once again, and particularly this event's organizing team, including Dil Rahat, Wang Green, Andy, Paharos, Raja, and Mami-san. I stop here. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dean, for the opening remarks, and particularly like the kind words that you have spoken about the team, and also the vision that you have for ADBI to make more impact on policy making in Asia. So thank you very much. And also the new apps that we are going to bring in soon. I think that will have some good impact on the think tanks in Asia and also around the world. Now with this, I would like to invite Professor Professor Andy McKay to give an overview on the journals. But before I hand over the floor to him, I'd like to give a very short introduction. Professor Andy McKay is a professor of development economics at the University of Sussex Business School. He researches on development economics, especially in relations to poverty and inequality and how these are impacted by policies. In terms of geographical focus, his work predominantly is on East and West Africa, South Asia, and Vietnam. He has recently co-led 2 multi-country research projects on female labor issues in Africa and South Asia. He has been the managing editor of Review of Development Economics since 2015, a period which has seen a significant increase in number of quality of publications as well as number of successful special issue, which you can see from the special issue that we are going to launch. And Andy has also supervised several PhD students on wide range of topics in development economics. He has been advisor to bilateral donors, including DFID, and international organizations and governments in developing countries. Andy has previously worked at the University of Nottingham, Bath, and ODI. With this, I would like to thank Professor Andy for these collaborations and also for supporting ADBI's endeavors to make impact, particularly among developing member countries. So with this, let me hand over the floor to Professor Andy.
Thank you very much, Dil, for that kind introduction. Good afternoon to everybody. Welcome. I was asked to make a few remarks about the journal, which is hosting this special issue, the Review of Development Economics, which, as Dil says, I've been managing editor of for a few years. This is a peer-reviewed journal which dates back to 1997 Professor Quan Choi in Illinois State University set it up. He edited it for many years until 2014. We publish papers in all areas of development economics. We publish macro and micro, theory and empirical, lots of things. 4 issues a year, but 25 papers in each. We have a strong also support from Wiley, who are the publishers we work with. I'll put up the list of the current co-editor team. Obviously, that's quite a large co-editor team, which of course includes Professor Wanglin Ma, who's with us. But if we look at the country of origin of the co-editors, we have quite a lot of countries represented there in the countries of the origin, including Asian and African countries, as well as European. In terms of the process of publication, we don't charge a submission fee. We've been getting more and more submissions over time. The number of submissions has continued to increase. Maybe we'll get 1,500 submissions this year, lots of submissions. Of course, with that number of submissions, we need to and do desk reject many papers. The ones we don't desk reject, we try to get 2 reviews for, and we try to give a first response to the authors within about 3 months. And of the papers that are reviewed, less than half would get through the process to being published. We get submissions from all over the world. There's a distribution by income group. You'll see lots of countries coming from middle-income countries in particular. Of course, lots from high-income countries, but also from middle-income countries. Lots from East Asia and the Pacific, followed by Europe and Central Asia. Those are the biggest regions in terms of our submissions. If we just look at the top 10 countries of submission, China is top, India is third, Japan 5th, Tunisia, Turkey, Pakistan, Cameroon, Nigeria all feature quite high in terms of the number of submissions. We're getting submissions from lots of countries, more than 100 countries, and some poor countries feature quite well. Now, if we look at the number of acceptances, the story is a little bit different. The biggest number of acceptances are papers from authors who are based in the United States, but China is second. UK, Germany, Japan feature quite strongly, but a little further down, Brazil, India, Mexico, and so on. So we want to reach out to a wide range of countries. We also publish a number of special issues or really special symposia, because they're usually not the whole issue of a journal. They're normally like half of the journal. And we try to choose topical issues, and we want to have guest editors who help manage. Sometimes some of the co-editors will be involved, as they were here. Special issues are very good. They help us to have impact. They help us to reach a wider range of authors, both in the sense that we can get big names. You heard about some of the people that were invited as keynote speakers to our conference for this, but also we can reach out to authors from low and middle income countries who might have more difficulty publishing as a regular submission, but might have more of a chance when it's part of a bigger special issue. Sometimes the special issues are based on research projects or conferences. Sometimes they're based on a call for papers, which is what we did here. Now, you won't be able to read that list of all the special issues, but there's about 10 special issues that we've published since about 2015. There's another couple in progress at the moment. Among those special issues, one before we did in collaboration with ADBI and also the Asian Growth Institute, the Asian Growth Research Institute, on aging in Asia, which was, again, a very successful one. We've had special issues with the African Economic Research Consortium, with the Partnership for Economic Policy, and many others. And some others there are based in research projects. As a journal, we find that we're having increasing impact over time. We're getting more submissions, but the submissions that we publish, the quality, I think, is getting better. The impact is increasing. And I think the special symposia are a very important part of this. Now, one thing that I think made this particular symposium, a couple of things made this symposium very important. One is a really topical and important issue. And that's partly, I think, why we attracted the number and quality of submissions that we have managed to attract. we also managed to turn this around very quickly. The initial discussion of this was at the beginning of 2022. We were discussing that. We already had the conference a year ago, and now a year after the conference, slightly over, we have the published special issue. I'd like to thank very much everyone who has cooperated in this. I'd certainly like to say thanks to Dean Sonobe, Dr. Dil Rahoot, Wang Lin Ma, for all their support in putting this process forward. But I'd also like to say thanks to all the authors as well for their commitment, their willingness to respond to comments, to turn round and to produce papers of a good enough quality for us to want to publish them. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Andy, for your remarks on the journal, and grateful to you for your time, and also for giving us an overview, and also clearly highlighting that your journal is trying to, like, through symposia, through special issue, trying to at least give space to authors from DMC who have difficulties in reaching the journals through a regular process. I think that's something that's really important, particularly encouraging young researchers in developing countries, as well as directly impacting the policies in developing countries. Now, I'd like to invite my friend, colleagues, and a guest editor for this special issue, Dr. Wang Ning Ma, to give you a brief introductions about Dr. Wang Ning Ma. He's an associate professor of applied economics at Lincoln University, New Zealand. He received his PhD from Kiel in Germany. And Dr. Wang Ning Ma mainly works in the field of agriculture economics and development economics, covering a wide range of topics. And he has published over 120 articles in internationally peer-reviewed journals, and has reviewed a large number of papers from very high impact factor journals. Dr. Wang Ning Ma also is the editor on the editorial board of several journals, and I really like, it's quite a number actually. And I thank Dr. Wang Ning Ma for these collaborations and for working together with ADBI in creating an impact in, as I always say, in developing countries in Asia. So with this, may I give the floor to you, Dr. Wang Ning Ma?
Thank you very much for a nice introduction, Dr. Reinhardt. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's my great honor to be here to introduce the theme of the special issue. So the theme of the special issue is rural and agriculture development in the digital age, which was edited by me, Professor Andy, Dr. Rahoot, and Dean Sonobe. And this is timeline for the special issue. And in early February last year, we proposed the special issue. And then we made the formal call for submission at the end of February 2024. We set a submission deadline 30th of June 2022. And based on the papers submitted to the special issue, we collaborated with ADBI to organize international virtual conference for the special issue, which was run on 9th to 10th and 12th August 2022, because 11th of August was a public holiday in Japan. That's why there's a gap during the conference period. And now I will give you a general overview of the journal submission. So for this special issue, we totally received 97 submissions from the authors from 16 countries. As you can see, most of the submissions from China and India, and this is highly consistent with what Professor Andy just introduced. Most of the journals, most of the submissions for RDE journal were from China and India if we talk about developing countries. And we also received some papers from developed countries. Therefore, we promoted diversity and inclusion by organizing this spatial issue. And among these 97 submissions, 51 articles were rejected because they were not highly relevant to the general aims and scope of the RDE journal, as well as the aims and scope of the spatial issue. And 2 papers were rejected and after review. And for 16 papers, they do not fit the spatial issue well, but meet the aims and scope of the RDE journal in general. Therefore, we moved those 16 papers to the regular submissions. And finally, we selected 28 papers as candidate papers for the spatial issue. So for these 28 papers, they were submitted by authors from 11 countries, including China, Germany, New Zealand, United States, Indonesia, Pakistan, Philippines, Japan, Ghana, India, and Sweden. So among these 28 papers, 9 papers are talking about the role of internet use. 5 papers were focusing on e-commerce adoption, and 8 papers were focusing on general ICT adoption or ICTs such as smartphone use. And 6 papers were focusing on digital applications such as digital reminders, digital extension services, and mobile money. For this spatial issue, for the conference organizer for the spatial issue, it was a very successful one because we, as Dean Sluby emphasized, we invited 4 very famous scholars to be keynote speakers, including Professor Jikun Huang, Professor Michael Kramer, and Professor Edward Barbier, and they were highly ranked scholars globally. So as a result of a rigorous double-blind reviewing process, our spatial issue finally accepted 9 articles to be included in the spatial issue. And among the 9 papers, we selected the best quality of the papers. So the review process is very rigorous. Among the 9 papers, 2 papers were focusing on internet use. So one is focusing on the impact of internet use on consumption diversity in China, and another one is focusing on the impact of internet use on agricultural productivity in Vietnam. We also got 2 papers focusing on the role of smartphone use. The first one analyzed the impact of smartphone use on rural women's decision-making power in China. And the second paper investigated the impact of smartphone use on female labor force participation in Pakistan. And I saw the author of this paper was with us tonight. That is great. We received 3 papers discussing the roles of ICT adoption. The first paper was contributed by Professor Edward Barbier, and he investigated the reasons of having digital poverty traps in rural Asia, and discussed the ways to overcome the digital poverty traps. The second paper was focusing on the impact of ICT adoption on credit access and income growth in rural China. The third paper was focusing on the impact of a digital financial inclusion on farmers' poverty vulnerability reduction in China. The last paper was contributed by Professor Jikun Huang and his co-authors. They analyzed the impact of e-commerce adoption in rural China on agri-food value chain participation of smallholder farmers who are producing fruits and vegetables. In general, the special issue papers provide a comprehensive understanding regarding the role of ICTs in promoting sustainable agriculture and rural development. What is the value of the special issue? I think the great value is the findings from the special issue can help design the policy instruments that support sustainable rural and agriculture development and highlight the important roles of government in supporting rural farmers' accessibility to ICTs by investing in infrastructures in rural areas and improving rural farmers' knowledge and skills in using digital technologies to improve livelihoods and reduce rural poverty. Okay, and thank you. That's my talk. I stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Wong Ling Ma, for your brief overview on the special issue. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to go to our next panelist, and I'd like to invite Professor Tilak Malichharwa. Professor Tilak, he's an associate professor and a managing partner, University of Queensland and Malawa Insight, Australia. Professor Tilak is a resource economist with a strong background in public policy, backed by publications across many areas of agriculture development and resource economics. He is currently the president of Australasian Agriculture and Resource Economics Society. Tilak has worked across complex policy research interface in Asia and also in Sub-Saharan Africa. He completed his PhD with Professor John Quigan, focusing on resource use, conflict, and value trade. And also, like, Professor Tilak is actively doing research in Pakistan and in Sri Lanka on food waste management. I think that's a very, very important issues that he's dealing with, and he has really led many big projects in Sub-Saharan Africa, particularly the Simlesa and Adoption Pathway, and he's well published. With this, I'd like to invite Professor Tilak to comment on the special issue.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dil. I think thank you for the opportunity, and it's a privilege to follow this distinguished people who have come before me. And I don't think I am qualified to comment on this wonderful special issue. And what I'm really going to do is that I read through the papers, they're wonderful. An area where I'm sort of very keen, that's the public policy. If you are going to then relate this to public policy and to improve public policy, what are the challenges we have in increasing the impact of this digital opportunity we have? And therefore, you can see the presentation now?
We can see the presentations, but not you.
Not me. Okay. Okay. It's better now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. we know agricultural development is the fundamental way to get these economies, improve the quality of life of the economies that we are working on. And basically, it is all about growth and transformation. We know that, but when you are using resources, basically, it is the knowledge which enhances the way people to use their resources in a manner that provides the greatest outcome. And then long time, we have been focusing on the production system. We are producing more. We thought that those production systems will create income and they will improve the consumption opportunities for those people who don't have access to an improved quality of life. But at the moment, we have realized, particularly after the COVID, and then improving the consumption opportunities and maintaining choice is fundamentally important. Now, when you look at that, information is the key. And information provides incentives for investment, infrastructure, institutions, and provide that a package that enable growth and transformation. Therefore, the things that we have talked about in this special issue, the information communication technologies, they provide the enabling environment and influences the decision-making processes. Most of the time, we don't think about the importance of the decision-making, the value of information, and linking people together, linking the partners in the economic system together. That has enabled and provided an unprecedented opportunity for us to work together across the globe. Therefore, your book has, the volume has highlighted many opportunities, but it has reached many areas, particularly in China. There are lots of examples of very successful opportunities, but still there are lots of, not everyone is within reach to read the digital dividend. And therefore, we want to look at then how we can actually go further and then we improve. Therefore, largely in the Green Revolution times and beyond, we always thought technology is about machines, or technology is about doing things in a way improving the production function, the land, labor, capital management. That's the concept we had. But the technology that we are talking here is actually bringing all those things together and giving the opportunity people to combine those resources together and understanding the systems, understanding the constraints that you have. Therefore, that way, those resources, we can actually put it together much better. And China has shown us very well how these resources can be mobilized in a way that enhances opportunities. And then while we are improving this challenge, also we have risks associated with that. And then therefore, one area we want to do is we have to increase the connectivity and also to how to manage the risks associated with this in this connected world. And that's a bit of things I want to focus here, is that the prosperity is also attractive to criminals, unfortunately. When you have things, there is something for someone to take away. Therefore, how do we actually take those risks away from that, manage those risks? And in developed economies like in Australia, where I come from, we spend a lot of resources. We have the ability to do the surveillance, the monitoring, and understand those risks. But those facilities or the resources are not there. Most of our emerging countries and the less developed countries. Therefore, while this issue has highlighted lots of opportunities and lots of successes, and also there's an opportunity for the development partners like the ADB to actually look at, how do we enable this environment better, both not only in terms of expanding it, also expanding the services required to actually enhance that, enhance that protection, enhancing the protections in that so that we can, those digital dividends can be better shared. And therefore, how do you maintain the boundaries in terms of managing the private information? Therefore, that's, as you get better, that becomes more important. And then how do we develop the public policy framework in this connected world? And that's significantly important. There are, OECD, for example, has identified, many opportunities. They provided the policy framework, and then, but implementing those policy frameworks are easier in developed countries, the members of the OECD. But those are beyond. There are significant issues and significant vulnerabilities created because of that. And then, therefore, that way we need to really look about how do we do digital governance, how to balance the risks and the rewards. That will enable us to enhance the efficiency, access, and the integrity of the system, so that the benefits are far greater than some of the risks which are evolving. And unless we sort of narrow the digital divide, then we create another level of deprivation and exacerbate the already existing rural-urban divide and the lack of economic and social opportunity. And it is particularly going to affect our young people. And then if we don't do it, we deprive the opportunity for them to enhance their knowledge and their participation in the economic system. And then naturally that will hinder growth and development. That's not what we want to do. On the other hand, they can provide the fertile ground for social disruption, socially disruptive activities, which we don't want. And therefore, that's really, I want to highlight that opportunity. And therefore, in the new, this information digital era provides the new focus for international collaboration. Those days we was providing, the development agencies providing infrastructure development was about developing bridges, building bridges, and irrigation networks. Now we need to really, help develop these digital networks, focusing on the poor growth. And then because otherwise they will be left behind, then how to protect them from crime, fraud, and other disruptive activities. And then therefore, digital advancement then have created a new platform to link the production and consumption activities in a way that we never thought about earlier. Therefore, they will create, and with that also, we create lots of data because transactions are the basis of economic exchange. And also they provide about risks, social risks and opportunities, and how to guide resource allocation. That kind of information was never available to us in a way that we can scrutinize, we can trace, and we can verify who are the partners into an into transaction. It is now possible to do that. And therefore, the big data and the artificial intelligence networks that we have been developing, how do we then treat them as a store of knowledge while recognizing there are sources of risk? And then therefore, these are the, that I wanted to bring these into the attention, because when you are using the knowledge and the system that is presented in this book, in this volume, we need to be aware of these opportunities and these constraints as well. Therefore, in terms of implication, I really, really want to commend the team, the editors, the authors, and the reviewers and other people who have made this a possibility. And then they not only present issues and analysis, they also provide wonderful, the methods and data, how do you convert the available data sets into usable information in a way which is credible and robust. And therefore, that way, that information can be used in public policy. And that is therefore, I think I really would want to really appreciate again the leadership provided by Dean Sonobe, and for encouraging these adventures of scholarship, I call. Therefore, without these things, then our professions won't grow and we won't be able to support the policy processes and the beneficiaries of those policy changes. Therefore, I had the privilege working with Dr. Dil Rahoud for over many years. I'm learning always from him. And I really admire his ability to bring people together like he has done here. I have different perspectives to create a tangible product. And also, to see people of the caliber of Andy McKay in this, and then our, evolving leaders like Wong Lim Ma. I think this combination makes this special issue more special. Therefore, I really want to thank you and keep up the great work. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to gain from this experience. I'll stop here. There. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Tilak. We really appreciate for sharing your views, and actually, given the work that you have done in rural development, I would really say that you are an expert on this. It's not only that you have done academic work, but also you have actually lived in the rural communities and worked with them, and I don't think there's anyone else who is better than you who can talk about rural development. So thank you very much. You have been always kind. You have always been there not only to help ADBI, but also nurture young researchers. I have seen you, the kind of hand holding you have done to the young researchers from developing countries. You have gone out of your way to groom them, and we really look forward to those kind of support from you all the time. Now, I would like to pass on the floor to the audience if you have any question. Yes, Dr. Raja, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dil, for giving me the opportunity to participate here and then have a conversation with the great scholar here. And I think definitely, I think this special issue is really bringing the burning topic, digital age, with upcoming ChatGPT and the AI, right? So, and also together with that, so by the time of 2035, we are reaching to the technological singularity, means where the humans and the AI will have the same level of consciousness. But I'm not sure what that consciousness would be. Then, because I have been working, I have been doing lots of research and actually basically understanding the human behaviors on the aspect of sustainability and the future generation, which has been always my focus, and then I do care about that. So I was when I was going through this, because I also attended the last year conference, and I was in this process of coming up with this special issue. And there was always this question in my mind that was bogging me time and again, that what could be the insight that how this digitalization could bring or boost the sustainable rural and the agriculture development, which I have been wondering all my times, and any of the expert could really put give their insight in this question. I'll be very happy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raza. I think this is really a very pressing questions, and I think every one of us has been thinking about it, about the future of humanity with the evolutions of AI. So I'd like to pass on this to the panelists. Any one of you would like to jump in first, and then followed by others? Professor Andy, Professor Tilak. Yes, Professor Andy, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much.
We can't see you though. Yes.
Can you now? Yes. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge some important points made by Dr. Tilak. And we talked about the inclusion of authors in publishing and so on, but there's also a big question of inclusion in terms of access to digital technology. And that's something I think we need to work more on. So people that can get access to digital technology have great opportunities, but some people can't. And these are things we need to know more about and understand more about. Dr. Tilak also talked about technology being misused. And Dr. Raja talked very much about this whole issue about the future of AI, and that's, you know, that's changing week by week, but that's something we very much need to keep on top of and keep alert to. You know, this is potentially giving good opportunities, but it's also, again, I think has a lot of risks. Let me stop there.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Andy. Professor Tilak, would you like to add few things from your side?
Yeah, actually, that's I had a slide over there. I skipped in there in my presentation. For example, in Australia at the moment, the cost of misuse and fraud associated with in the digital world is about 100 billion, right? And then because we had this large risk associated with one of our national health insurers, they were attacked. And then therefore, most of the people actually do not report. And then because most of the people get sort of attracted to some of the benefits, so-called benefits associated with that. And it doesn't mean that the net gain actually is much, much higher. Therefore, that gain allows us to actually put some of that back into investment. Therefore, prioritization and balancing that is really, we need to lead in these governments. I mean, I'm talking from Sri Lanka right now, and then when I was visiting farmers over there, the knowledge net, everyone has they call, okay, I am in this WhatsApp group. They're sharing information. They're verifying their practices with each other. They were not possible those days. Now they don't have to visit another farm to get someone's ideas. And therefore, I think this is really going to expand the collaboration and the partnerships within villages, across villages, across countries, and internationally, right? Therefore, I really, all the knowledge we want to do things, perhaps they are somewhere. We need to integrate that knowledge. Therefore, this is the opportunity we have now. Yeah, therefore, that's all I want to say about that. Risk will be there, but I think we will develop the capability to manage those risks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Tilak. Yes, Dean.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, related to this question from Raja, so I think that in many countries, especially developed countries, the policymakers and other people are talking about the regulation of the especially use of generative AI, but there may be a kind of difference between rural area and urban areas, urban activities and agricultural activities. And then, do you think the voices from the rural area, reaching that kind of discussion reflected in the discussion of the future regulation of the use of generative AI and other digital technologies? So that's my worry. So, and then what we can do, like I mean the think tanks, which mission is to link research and policy making. Is there anything? So if we could get any suggestions from the researchers in this virtual room, so I would be very happy.
Yeah, anyone, like maybe if any one of the attendee would like to also talk, we can bring you into the panelist and you can talk. Please let me know. You can drop a message in the chat box and I can pull you and you can give your views on what Dean has just pointed out. But in the meantime, like Andy and Tilak and Wong Ling, do you have any thoughts on or reflections on what Dean was sharing?
Thank you. Yes, so clearly, we can say ICT plays an important role in supporting agriculture and rural development because ICT can help improve agriculture productivity, empower rural women, And mainly because the ICT can reduce the information asymmetry and linking smallholder farmers to domestic and international markets. However, in some rural areas of Asian countries, smallholder farmers do not have access to the ICTs because in those regions there's no ICT infrastructure, and also because in some places farmers have a very low level incomes, or they do not have relevant knowledge which prevent them from adopting the advanced technologies. And when using ICT, farmers are also need electricity. And I learned from Dio. Dio traveled a lot, and in some regions, for example, in Nepal, they even have no access to electricity. It is not possible for farmers there to use modern technologies such as ICT. So from the policy perspective, I think there's an urgent need to improve rural infrastructure, which enable farmers to access to the ICTs or increase rural incomes in some highly and hilly and mountainous regions, which can help farmers to afford the costs of the ICTs. Yes, that is my thought. Thank you, Dio.
No, thank you. Thank you, Wong Ling. I think this is an excellent point that you have raised. And any more views that you'd like to share on this, Professor Tilak or Professor Andy?
Yeah, I think I would wish to follow with Wong Ling was presenting. Actually, again, after the COVID, it was very, it was clearly evident that having the ability to consume or having a basic income is fundamentally important. Earlier, we thought having enough production available was important, because when you look at the food security, access, availability, and utilization, no point having the food in the store if you don't have access to. Then when you provide access and people are consuming, it creates the demand for the food and the providing those actually which are needed. Therefore, that creates the cycle going. I think I was about an hour ago when I was in some of the rural areas. I had traveled those areas about 20 years ago. I was amazed what they have achieved, and then that means that I can see they were healthier by the the way and they have access to food, and they produce food as well, and they trade it, right? And therefore, I think we need to now look at how do we provide the minimum basic income to people so that they can maintain that level and work hard to get beyond, right? And that is sort of like we discussed in one of our earlier work, and rather than providing perhaps subsidies and inputs which may be overused and misused. And it's the same bucket of money, but then we turn it around. And therefore, yeah, that's what my reflections are from sort of coming from the field today. Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Tilak. I think you are just confirming from your visit to Sri Lanka on what John Quiggin has been proposing for many years. I think has been discussing with you on this. Looks
Yes.
like we have the evidence of what he was proposing. But I just saw Dr. Raja's hand up. Is there anything last minute that you'd like to?
Yeah, so at the same time, like I was just wondering again that, so there is a saying that you can pull the horse to the water, but you cannot make horse drink the water, right? And as I was just wondering, for example, okay, there is an internet, so farmers are holding a smartphone in their hand. So because like so far I really didn't see it. Like I really wanted to see like how the sustainability concept of the farmers can be connected with the digitalization. For example, like the way that, for example, the burning of the cutting of the rice after the harvest has been done. So like, are they really looking for the info, like farmer? Do they the indigenously they really look for the information of being sustainable by the existence of the digitalization? So this is what was the question that I had in my mind. So, but anyway, I think we are running out of the time. So, but if anybody would like to quickly give any thoughts or insights in this, I'd be very happy.
I think very quickly I can say yes, they are. And in fact, when we were doing this, some mango farms I was there, they were fertilizing much less, about 1/10 of what they were using fertigation, putting fertilizer with irrigation. And then I had some photos, between the traditional mango rows, they are putting high density mangoes. And in the inter-row space, they are intercropping with chilies and other vegetables, for example. They say that one person said that within the last 2 years, they earned like, 300,000 rupees, which was, from the intercrops alone, from that half an acre land. And that kind of money was not going around sort of farming groups like this who have a small area. And they were worried about misusing water. Those days, they were not worried about those things. They worried about weed control. And their pesticides use also has come down. Therefore, the ability to having that money, ability to maintain that consumption, actually has given them, like the Kuznets curves, as they get better, we are more worried about the environment. Those messages, actually, those behaviors, we can see on the farm. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tilak. If there is any other comments, then I think we could call up. But if there is any comments, Wang Ling, looks like you have something, or you're okay? Yes, Dean?
Oh, no, I'm okay.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, with this, I'd like to thank all the panelists. I'd like to thank Dean Sonobe for being with us and also for being the guest editor of this special issue. Professor Andy McKay and Professor Tilak, Professor Wang Ling Ma, for being here with us, and all the participants for joining us for these sessions, and also the organizers. And also I'd like to thank Dr. Raja for posing us very challenging questions, and also, like, maybe it'll carve a way for another special issue. Thank you very much. With this, let me call for an end to this webinar with lots of thanks and lots of gratitudes, and looking forward for next level of collaborations. Thank you very much.